Hey everyone, it's Andrew. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm super excited to be doing an unboxing and review of the Timemore Black Mirror Basic Plus coffee scale. This is a coffee scale that I've had my eye on for about a year and a half now, but just never purchased because when I looked at it in the past, it was just really expensive. And so recently when I was on Amazon, I looked this up again and I found out that you could purchase this currently for about $40, which is very affordable. And so I pulled the trigger on it and I finally got it in the mail today. And so what we'll do in this video is we'll do an unboxing of the actual scale. We'll discuss the general features of the scale, how it works. We'll show you close-ups of the scale. And then I'll walk through how I currently do pour over coffee with my traditional method without using a scale. Really the sense of doing it that way is I want to get a sense of how far off I am on my current ratios because after using this scale, it should allow you to weigh your coffee grinds as you're doing pour over coffee. It'll allow you to weigh the water appropriately. It'll make it overall so that you have more reliable and better quality coffee from one brew to the next. And so I'm super excited about this video. There's going to be a link in the description for where you can find this on Amazon, but if you can track this down at an affordable price, I definitely recommend it based on the past reviews I've seen, and we'll see how it works out today. Okay, so this is the Timemore Black Mirror Basic Plus coffee scale. You get it on Amazon for currently $40. Some of the different sellers sell for about $45 to $50 though. The labeling on the side shows what it is. So it says Black Mirror Basic Plus. It's really designed specifically for coffee. There's some specifications as far as the features and things on the back, but I'm not going to go into them because they're pretty straightforward once you get the box open. And so we'll just get this box open. The packaging is really nice. It's got kind of your typical layout as far as everything. It's an elegant, sleek design, and that's very representative of how this scale is going to look. As far as when you open up the packaging, as you can tell, at the bottom here is going to be a charging cable, or actually we'll pull this out. So there's some styrofoam. There's going to be a silicone thermal kind of insulation that you can put on top of the scale. You'll have what looks like a certification in Chinese here, or Japanese, or Chinese here for certification for the specifications and making that it's standardized. Here's going to be an instruction manual that looks like it is not in English, so this is a non-English instruction manual. Actually here on the back side it's English here, so it gives you instructions as far as how to do the pour over, the different specifications on it, where all the features are as far as the power button, the Tare button, timing it, and then the layout for things as far as everything like that. We'll go into that in more detail, but that's the instruction manual. Then you're going to have the actual scale itself, which comes in this kind of neat, concise bag. We'll peel this open now just to pull it out. So that's the scale. It does have a protective layer when you first open it, and then beyond that there should be a power cable at the bottom. So that's everything that comes in the box. Let me just pull this all off just so you can get a sense, but there's a protective layer on the actual scale, easily pulls up. This is the silicone like thermal insulation for the scale, so when you put your actual pour over setup on this. So that's what this is, that's what that looks like, okay? And then we have the instruction manual, and then there's going to be a USB-A to USB-C port because this is going to be USB-C chargeable. And so if you look here, there's going to be a cable here. That's probably about 2.5 feet long. As you can tell, there's going to be a USB-A port and a USB-C port, and the charging will be on the side. So we'll just get into the scale and kind of discuss the features. So overall, this is what it looks like. So it is a flat kind of plastic finish. I'll be honest, like looking at the pictures and everything like that, I'm surprised that it's actually plastic because all the pictures on Amazon, on the websites, kind of allude to the fact that it probably is like a fancier material. But if you feel this, it's kind of like it feels kind of like a cheap plastic on the layer on the top, as far as that. It's not like a metal or anything like that. And then on the edge, we'll pull off these tabs here because they're kind of just for packaging. But on the bottom, as you can tell, the entire top of the scale wraps around the corners, and basically that's how it works, okay? And then on the back, there's not much information, but it does have rubber tabs on it so it doesn't slide. And so that's really what the scale looks like. It is a plastic finish on the top. There's some edges to it. And then really this should turn on immediately, which if you hit here, I was just dumb in this instance and didn't look into it, but I read the instruction manual, kind of looked into this a little bit further. But on the right hand side here, there's actually a power on off switch. So if you turn that on, that'll turn on the scale. So I just didn't turn the scale on. And next to it is where the charger is for the actual scale. It's going to be a USB-C port right over here. And then all of the functions on the front are going to be right here. So there's going to be a screen on the bottom here that gives you all the information and the touch features for the scale. And so on the right hand side is going to be a power switch. So if you turn this on, you can turn the scale on and off using this. Next to it's going to be the weight. So if I press and hold on here, there's going to be a scale weight display in grams up to 2,000 grams. Okay, so if I press down all the way beyond 2,000, it's going to fail and not show any indication, okay? And then on the left hand side here is going to be a timer, which we'll walk through briefly, but above the timer will be a speaker indicator for whether the beep for the sound is on, okay? And then next to that is a battery indicator for the life of the battery for the scale. And then lastly over here is your touch feature for the actual timer. And so we'll just walk through this real quick. So for the timer, all you have to do is touch and press this once, and if it beeps, it'll automatically start playing the timer, okay? And then you can pause this by touching it again, all right? And then you can restart it by doing a similar thing. It is very sensitive to the touch. There were reviews online that said this was a little bit slow, but to be honest, like, this is immediate response. So that's that. As far as restarting it, what you do is you press and hold it briefly, about 2 seconds, then it'll restart and go to 0, okay? If you want to turn off the sound, what you do is press and hold this, I believe, for 2 seconds. Or 5 seconds, I believe. And then it'll turn off the speaker, so no longer will you get a beep. So if I press this, sorry, it'll now play, but you won't get that beep response. So it's something that I probably would not switch unless you find the beep to be annoying. But we'll just put this back to 0. Sorry. It's at 0 now. And then what we'll do is turn on the beep just for the video for now. So now the beep is back on. And then the interesting part about this scale is that it has a built-in auto start feature. So if you go into here on the left-hand side, and I believe if you press and hold, or no, you press 5 times, it'll turn on the auto start feature. So we'll do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So actually that turned off the auto start feature is there now. Now we'll have to just see how we can start this. I think if you just start it, yeah. So now if you start it, how the auto start feature works is once you set up the auto start and turn it on and have it automated, you can see that A indicator right there. Once you put pressure on the scale, it'll automatically start timing. So it facilitates it where it makes it easier for when you're doing pour over coffee or setting it up so that you don't have to finagle with all your apparatus, whatever you might be doing, and then hit the scale or hit the timer and get it started. So it auto starts, and then what happens is, I believe, is if you press this again, it might restart the timer. I'll have to look into it a little bit more, but that's the auto start feature, and I'll mess with that and figure it out more. But you can stop it right there, and then we'll just get it back to 0. So now it's at 0. Now, as far as tearing this, let me just throw on my pour over setup right here. So this is the Bodum pour over. Once you have as far as tearing everything, once you have a weight for this, you'll hit the power button over here and it'll tear it back to 0. And that's how you're going to use pour over, do your whole setup as far as pour over coffee in this instance. So the steps for pour over coffee, sorry, I had something in there, is basically what you're going to do is you're going to basically put on your pour over setup. You're going to put it onto the actual scale. You're going to tear it like I do have now. Then you're going to 0 it, okay? Then for my instance, because I use the Bodum pour over setup, I'm gonna put my filter in here and then tare it again, all right? And once it's tared, then you're gonna add your grinds. Your grinds to the level or the quantity you want, all right? And then you're gonna tare it again, and then you're gonna do the pour over, and then you're gonna monitor the weight while you're doing a pour over setup. And so the benefit of this is that by doing this, you're gonna have you can have a consistent weight ratio for the coffee grinds to the actual water, so that you don't overbrew or like water down your grind, or use too little water, so that from one brew to the next you have can have a consistent brew. And so that's everything as far as the scale, the features. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to just set up making my pour over coffee, and then what we'll do is we'll get this all set up and I'll walk through the steps one by one. I'm just going to use my typical way of making coffee at this time because my ratios are probably off. I'm actually just very curious to see how far they are off from standard, and then we'll just see how effective this scale is in the long term. But this is a great scale. This is awesome. I'm super excited about this product because this is something that I've wanted for a while, but when in the past it was just really expensive, and it's just this minimalist, like sleek design where it's got everything you need for coffee, and it's just got this very similar to the name, this black mirror finish that just looks cool, and you wouldn't really suspect all the features with how it looks. So right now I'm going to set up all my coffee stuff, and we'll walk through how to make coffee using the scale, and I'll show you how it works as we go. All right, real quick, before I make the coffee, I'm going to walk through everything that I use. So what we're using today is we're going to be using Trader Joe's Sumatra coffee. I've been using this for years, absolutely love it. What we're going to do is about 6 scoops of the coffee into my grinder, and that's usually the quantity I use. I'm just really curious to see how far off I am. I use this cone filter with my pour over setup, and we're going to be using the Bodum pour over coffee maker. This is a cheap, affordable pour over coffee setup that you can get from Walmart, Target, anywhere online for about $20. This is a very effective and easy way to make coffee with pour over design or technique, and so I've been using this for a while. I've gone through about 3 of them because they broke over time, but it's nice because it's cheap and affordable to buy. Next we have the Zassenhaus coffee grinder. I've had this for probably about 5 years now, and I absolutely love this thing. This is the best hand grinder you can find on the market, and it looks awesome. And then we have the Brewista kettle. This is going to be a stovetop kettle. They also make electronic kettles. I personally have a stovetop one, and I use this, and I always measure the temperature to come down to 205 degrees. When I make coffee, I'll have about about a centimeter and a half from the top, and that's usually the quantity I use with the Bodum maker. And then obviously we have the new addition with the Timemore Black Mirror Basic Plus coffee. So first off, what we're going to do is just boil or heat up the water. What we're going to do in this instance with the Brewista kettle is I'm going to boil it entirely, and then typically I wait 2 minutes and then measure the temperature, and usually it's at 205 degrees, which is the optimal temperature for a coffee. So we'll let this boil, and then we'll set up our coffee. Okay, so while the water's heating up, what we'll do is we'll grind our coffee with the Zassenhaus grinder. And so this is going to be Trader Joe's Sumatra coffee. We're going to take roughly 1 tablespoon, and then we're going to take 6 of these. Usually this coffee grinder can allow for about 3 tablespoons. And then what I'll do is I usually grind this, and then I'll fill it up with 2 extra scoops, so 5 total scoops. And then that's the quantity of coffee I use. As far as the grind on the Zassenhaus, we're going to get it all the way to the top, and then about 3 spins down, okay? And that's a good grind for pour over coffee. I'm gonna grind this now. I'm gonna briefly do it on camera, but otherwise we'll speed it up so you don't have to actually watch this. Okay, so that grinded the first 3 tablespoons, and then what we're gonna do is 2 extra scoops, okay? And then we're gonna grind that as well. Okay. So that's all the grinding. So the nice thing about the Zassenhaus is it's got this little drawer right here, and you can get all the coffee here. So this is what the grind looks like at that setting that I set it for. We're gonna leave that in here right now, okay? And then we're gonna start setting up our pour over. Okay, so now we're gonna set up everything for the pour over. So obviously you're gonna need the scale. I'm just gonna turn this on because I had it off. Next, we're gonna use whatever pour over setup you have. So this is gonna be the Bodum Bistro pour over kettle. Which is going to weigh 418.5. I'm just going to keep track of all these because I have never done this before, so it'll be interesting to see. But then you add the filter on top. This filter is currently dry. I always use the filter with the Bodum pour over setup just because the metal screen, it doesn't really clean easily, so I always want to put the filter on top, all right? And so currently that weight is 420, all right? 420.1, all right? That's just for my own personal kind of knowledge. And now what we're gonna do is we're actually going to use the hot water that we had from the kettle, and then we're gonna just lightly wet the filter, okay? You don't have to go all the way to the top, but it's basically to just get the filter wet and soaked with warm water so that it provides, it heats the whole pour over setup, but also makes sure that the filter doesn't get stuck on the sides or anything like that. It also eliminates any contaminants from the filter, so it prevents it from getting in your coffee. Once the water goes all the way through here, what you're actually gonna do is you're gonna get rid of all this extra water, all right? So that it's not in your actual brew, and then you're gonna just put everything on the scale like this. So currently it's 428.6 after I added the water. Regardless though, it doesn't matter because we don't care, all right? We're gonna tare this. Sorry, I turned it off. So you're gonna tare it and get it to 0, okay? And then we're gonna add the coffee grinds. And this is where that weight actually matters. So this is the 5 scoops that I usually use. I'm not really gonna worry about ratios right now because I'll fine tune this later on. But that's the 5 scoops. And so that weighs 24.5 grams, okay? 24.5 grams for 5 scoops. And then now what you're gonna do is you're actually gonna do the auto start function. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna just hit this, and then it'll auto start where it starts from 0, and then the second you start adding weight or water to this, it'll start timing. So if you see, it'll automatically time, and then it'll keep track of the weight as you're pouring. And this is real time, so as I'm pouring, I can immediately see the weight and go that route. So right now, all I'm doing is I'm basically wetting the grinds in there and making sure the filter's flat. And now what we're gonna do from that 20-second time period is we're gonna wait about 30 seconds to allow the coffee to bloom so that it releases the CO2 and gets activated for the pour over. So I'm gonna just wait to about 50. And I'll speed this along in the video for the purposes of it. So that's 50, so now it's bloomed and it's basically been activated. So now we're just gonna pour this, and I'm just gonna use my usual way independent of the actual scale this time, just because I've never used the scale, so I'll have to work on my ratios. But this is really just for my own personal knowledge on kind of like how I've been performing and where I can perform better moving forwards. But all you do is you basically use the gooseneck kettle and basically just go in circular motions. And what I've learned over the time or years I've been doing this is that I'll just do this in a slow motion so that as the water is going down, I'm adding it at a very similar rate as far as when that quantity I'm pouring in. I find that if you pour it all in all of a sudden and let it sit, it doesn't come out as well. So you kind of just want this continuous flow that it's like just flowing into the coffee. And then if you pour too much, you just have to wait, let it drain a little bit, and then keep on doing it that way. So we're just keep on doing this. I'm gonna use almost all the water in this. Usually I use visual cues to make sure that I don't put too much water. You can tell kind of how the bubbles form in this if you add too much water. And I believe the typical ratio you want is 1 gram per 17 grams of water. So I'll have to do the math on that. So if I have, let me think about it. So if I had 24 grams, it would be that times 17 to figure out how much water you should add. So we're just gonna keep on pouring this and we'll do it our normal way. Okay. And that's nearly all the water, okay? Now we're just gonna let this drain through, all right? But as far as the weight, the final weight for this is gonna be 853.5. And so I'm really curious to see how this works out as far as ratios. So what I'll do is I'll let this run through and I'll do some math on this to get a ratio of my coffee quantity to the water to know the difference of how far off I am. Okay, so the water has finally ran all the way through the filter and the grinds. What you'll do is you'll get rid of this. I'll just take this out, throw it in a compost pile, and then I'll just rinse off the metal screen in here. That's really all you have to do. Then every once in a while, I'll throw this in the dishwasher and clean it that way. But you really don't want to use soap on this because soap residue can build up in it and contaminate your coffee. I'm just gonna put this to the side for now and I'll worry about cleaning it up later. And then the nice part is the Bodum Bistro Bodum pour over setup comes with this little tong here, or push tab in here that allows you to pour it a little bit easier. And so really we're all done here as far as making the coffee. All you have to do is pour it in a cup and you're good to go. And so that's everything as far as the steps for making pour over coffee. This is the Timemore Black Mirror Basic Plus scale. I got it on Amazon for about $40. That's definitely affordable and it's a great option. My plan in the future from moving on forwards here is to revise and adjust my ratios to improve them. I did the math and as far as my ratio for water to coffee, it was about 34, which was 2 times the usual recommendation. And so what I'll do is I'll mess with that and fine tune this a little bit better, improve my overall quality as far as the grind and things like that, and hopefully my cups of coffee will be better long term. So if you have questions, comments about the Timemore, I'll be happy to answer them. I highly recommend this. This is something that I've been waiting to buy for about a year and a half, and the design and elegance of it being so minimalistic, being able to tare it and weigh things real time with the built-in timer, the auto start feature is really conducive for coffee. So I think if you're into pour over, treat yourself to a scale like this. You'll definitely like it, enjoy it, and it'll make the whole process one step higher up compared to your normal setup right now. So thanks for watching, and if you like this video, hit the like button, and as always, please subscribe if you want to follow more of my content.